share stories and lessons from clinicians and industry visionaries with the goal of providing an entertaining and informative look at the industry we share. And our guest today is Heather Colicchio, founder and president of the American Association of Dental Office Management. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Michael. Nice to be here with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. AADOM.
AADOM is how
AADOM. I think it's you have to pronounce the two A's.
AADOM is how I know and love the American Association of Dental Office Management, and it's exciting that we have Heather with us.
It is. This is a new kind of type of guest for us.
Yeah, it is, and that's what we like here on the Dental Insiders.
We're all about new things, so here we are.
So you know what? Let's jump right into it.
Do it.
But before we jump right into it, I'm actually going to switch gears early today. And before we talk about AADOM and dental office management, let's talk about coffee.
Coffee.
Because it's somewhat morning time-ish here exactly when we're recording it. So Heather, when we were talking a little bit earlier before this session, we talked about your roots in coffee shops. So tell us about your roots in coffee shops, and of course, what is your favorite coffee drink?
All right. I'll start with my roots in coffee. I went to college as a psychology major and a French minor. And, you know, like many people have traveled a different path in what I originally intended. So while I was in college, my uncle, he's a physician, and this was, you know, many years ago, if you can imagine a pre-Starbucks era. This was actually pre-Starbucks. And my favorite uncle, he's a physician. He was up at a hospital in Massachusetts, and he called me one day at college, and he never called. So I said, I better, you know, listen, you know, what's going on? He said, Heather, there's something going on in our hospital. It's a coffee bar, and they have all these different flavored coffees, and it's, you know, super busy. And don't spend because my intention at that time was to go to grad school and eventually get a PhD in psychology. And he said, don't spend your whole life in school. I did that. Not fun. Check this out. So I actually did take his advice and did some research into the coffee industry and said, this is really interesting, and this trend is coming eastward in New Jersey, and you know, there's some opportunity here. So I put a proposal together to open a coffee bar at a local hospital, and I said, if they like it, I'll try it, and if they don't like it, I'll go to grad school. And they liked it. So that was the start of Heather's Gourmet Cafe, which ended up being actually a chain of gourmet cafes in hospitals and medical centers around New Jersey. And I did that for about 10 years. It was successful. It was fun. And after about 10 years, I started to get a little bit bored, and that's where AADOM comes in. But to answer the second part of your question, my favorite coffee is just a nice, hot cup of dark black coffee. Something strong.
Something strong. No, nothing in it. You know, someone told me that once. I saw someone drinking black coffee, and I went, how do you drink that? And he told me, he said, you know, my dad taught me that if you can learn how to drink a cup of black coffee, you can find a cup of coffee anywhere.
And you can do anything.
You can do anything.
Anything.
Yeah, you can do anything.
And you will survive.
You will survive, and you'll grow hair places, you know, everywhere. Because it's black coffee is, I can't do it. It's
in
just
a world before Starbucks. That sounds like a movie trailer.
Because what was the biggest thing you learned in that coffee? So 10 years kind of starting it up and getting it going. What was the biggest thing you learned about the startup, you know?
A startup, right. So the biggest thing I learned was, you know, as a sort of entrepreneur by default.
Right.
Some of the biggest things I learned was how to wear every single hat in an organization, how to bootstrap, and, you know, how to really get creative with marketing. Because like I said, this was a pre-Starbucks era where, you know, people were saying, oh, $3 for a cup of coffee, that's absurd. You know, so I had to really get creative and, you know, think of ways to bring customers in. And that really did translate to AADOM because, and you know, I'm sure we'll get to it, but at the time people were like, recognition for dental office managers, what? So I'm like, all right, I can handle this.
So then let's get to it, right? So you've got this chain of successful coffee cafes in hospital and medical centers, which, you know, brilliant idea, by the way. So how does that lead you to think, well, an association for dental office management, that seems like a logical next step.
Well, that's perfectly logical next
step.
Yeah. Right. So I've been doing it about 10 years. And like I said, I was enjoying it, but I was, you know, growing a little bored. I was ready for a change. And at that time, I had a very good friend from college who was a dentist, is a dentist, and she was leaving a group practice to go solo. And she called me one day just freaking out. She said, I gave my notice, I made the commitment. She also had an entrepreneurial spirit, as many dentists do. But she said, I have no idea what to do now. I don't know billing, coding, HR, software, any of the things you need to function to run a successful business, which really is what a dental practice is a business. And I said, okay, don't worry. I'm sure there's something out there that can help you, some association. I'm a member of the Specialty Coffee Association of America. There's got to be an association that can help you get your office set up and do all the things that you were not taught to do in dental school. And in helping her, I realized that there was none. So that year, it was the Greater New York Dental Meeting at the Jacob Javits Center, and I told her, you should go to this thing. I found it, and she said, well, I can't go. I said, I'll go. I'll bring you back the information. So I just went, as a friend, and I asked anyone I saw who had an office manager tag, and there were very few. I said, who is your go-to association? And they said, well, we don't have one, but if you find one, let us know. And I said, okay. And then I asked the vendors, who is the association for the office managers? And they said, well, we don't think there is one, but if you find one, let us know, because that's really who we want to talk to most of the time.
Right.
So I literally came home that day with a bunch of business cards and said, this is crazy. All these people are looking for each other and have no idea how to find each other. So I actually just called them and said, why don't you talk amongst yourselves? And kind of grew from there.
Grew from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great. So office managers are such an interesting kind of micro set in the dental industry.
They're a niche within a niche.
Yeah, and they're a unique group that clearly wants to connect with people, like all of us do,
right,
like everybody in the industry. How has that role changed? 10 years ago, the office manager was one thing, and it's certainly evolved like all things. How has it evolved in the last 10 years?
In my opinion, it's evolved in such a positive way that it has gone from a job to a career, to a profession. 10 years ago, I think the dental office manager, practice administrator, which that title probably wasn't even given 10 years ago, was really someone who answered the phone, who was a glorified receptionist. But I think in the past decade, what I've seen, and I'd like to think AADOM had something to do with this, is recognition of really the importance of that role in a practice. And through education and through, fellowship and through office managers finding each other and finding us and saying, we want to elevate what we do. We recognize how important we are. How do we get better? I have seen that title go from being a job to an actual career path.
Right. And, we had a guest on a couple episodes ago who, I don't know if he still has an office manager, but I know he has a business manager now.
Yes.
I wonder if office managers will eventually evolve into business managers, because I don't know that it's a more serious title or it's more responsibility, but it kind of really takes you from that glorified secretary to someone who understands numbers, understands projections, and understands different things. Are you seeing that too?
That's absolutely accurate, and that's a trend we're seeing. So when I started AADOM 12 years ago, I would say almost 100% of our membership had the title of office manager. And we actually recently did a really in-depth look at some of our data, and now it's about 50% that have that title. The other 50% have practice administrator, chief operating officer, business manager. So the titles are more congruent with the actual work that's being done.
And not super important, but it's kind of important. I guess it's an indicator that it's becoming something more real and valuable.
Well, and also you're talking about someone who is an administrator, an operations manager, operations officer for a business that in many cases, especially if we have more than one practice involved, we're talking multi-million-dollar enterprises.
Right.
This is not small stakes.
Sure.
Right.
It comes up a lot in our podcasts, in our interviews, and even in our lives when we're in the industry with clients or in jobs, is that dental practices are businesses. And I believe, first and foremost, I think we both believe that they're businesses, and maybe they don't like this, but I think it's true, is that they're businesses first. If you're not in business, you're out of business.
Right.
You can't provide care if you can't. You could have the best coffee in the world, but if you can't figure out the numbers part and the employee part and all that, then no one's going to taste your coffee. And for a practitioner, you could be the best clinician in the world, and if you don't know how to make it work,
you need to have a successful practice. I think every dentist, you know, in their heart is a clinician and wants to provide the best possible patient care. But, you know, you're absolutely right. In order to do that, you have to have the framework, you know, to be able to provide that care. So,
right. Yeah. You mentioned, I'm going to hijack, I think it's Michael's question, but I'm going to hijack it.
No, hijack it. Go ahead.
You mentioned in the coffee years, we'll call those the coffee years. You're working on a book.
The coffee era.
The coffee grind.
It's already taken. Yeah.
So in that one, you mentioned wearing every hat. You probably had only a handful of employees. You probably had friends and family helping you out because it was kind of a small deal. And now that AADOM has grown, how have you evolved? Are you still kind of micro-managing things, or have you been able to share it? Because I know that's a challenge with entrepreneurs. I have clients that I struggle with trying to get them to let go of certain things. How's your role evolved?
That's a great question. That's a really great question. And when I was starting AADOM, my goal was to be by myself. You know, I like to be by myself, and I have my little dog Sage here next to me, and kind of so as a, you know, Heather and Sage show. What can I do? I don't have to talk to people. I don't have to interact. I can just kind of do my thing. And for a long time, that's what it was. And, you know, jokingly, but I truly did have pinned at one point an organizational chart of AADOM. You know, I was at the top and Sage was over here, and then I was every other person under that. And that's great. Then what happened was AADOM started to grow, and AADOM started to become successful because we started to fill a need that really, really needed to be filled. And AADOM just took off beyond anything I could have imagined. And there's only so much one person can do and do well. Yeah. And so at a certain point, I did, the first person I brought on was Lori Streeter. She's now our vice president. And over the years, we've, you know, brought on more and more people. And so now I have a team, which I'm blessed. I have the greatest, you know, really, truly most talented and creative team on the planet. So my role has changed from doing everything to now making sure my team has the resources they need to do everything and to really, you know, fly and succeed.
So you have evolved. I mean, that's a big, maybe, I don't know if you know how big of a deal that is. That's a big deal because most entrepreneurs don't ever, I can't say most, but a lot don't know how to just take on that new role and leave the other one behind, you know, and let people flourish under them.
Right. And in many cases, that's a skill set, or that's an ability that is required to scale that operation, to scale that business.
It's absolutely mandatory. You cannot scale a business with one person doing everything.
Right. Unless it's something that's completely automated. But in a situation like this, you know, and like
this is all about people, though. This is about people and relationships and
well, and the intention was never to scale. The intention was for me to have, you know, little something that I enjoyed. It scaled without the intention of it scaling, which is a wonderful problem to have. But it is a transition. And I think, though, what was great is that in those early years that I did literally do everything and answer every email and take every phone call and build the website and manage the software. I know how to do everything. And I respect the time it takes to do everything and the effort it takes to do everything. So, you know, I think that the evolution and the growth was very natural. So as you know, having done everything, though, my goal is always to allow my team to, like I said, they're also talented, to let them go and work to their strengths. But I do sometimes find myself kind of slapping my hands off the keyboard because I do want to sometimes jump in and, well, what about this? What about that? And that's, you know, good, but sometimes you really just need to just step back. So,
yeah. Very interesting. So aside from joining AADOM, if they're not already a member, you know, what's something that a dental practice administrator or office manager can do this week, can do today to improve their practice, their business?
What's an insider tip?
Join AADOM.
Join AADOM. You got that. Check.
Seriously, there are so many resources that we provide that because the thing is, unlike an assistant or a hygienist where it is a defined path and a defined education, office managers a lot of times are learning on the fly. Many times they're assistants who were chairside and then started answering the phone, and now they're managing the practice. So I mean, the real answer is education. Educate yourself. AADOM is one resource, but there are so many. I would say one thing to do this week is, read a business journal. Go online, read some business articles. Educate yourself. It's
part of owning your own business and sort of run your own thing is all the stress that kind of goes along with it. Michael runs his own consultancy. I do mine. We've got other interests we're in, and the stress that comes along with it. We hear you recently taken up kickboxing. What led to that? Is there a story behind that?
No story. No, just a friend who said, "Hey, I'm taking a kickboxing class. Would you like to join?" And really more to see her, because it's hard, running a business and children. It's sometimes hard to make time for friends. So I said, I'll do it once a week just to see you. And but as far as stress relief, that's a good one. Yeah, just a lot of punching and kicking and
that's I'm guessing with the AADOM group and you too. Work-life balance is a big deal, right? The majority of your membership is female, I'm guessing. I mean, it stands to reason. I'm sure that there are men out there doing it, but the majority is, and a lot of them either have families or are going to start families, or they're coming out of having families and getting back into it. So how important is the work-life balance to your group?
I think work-life balance is important to everyone, and you're right. The majority of our membership is female. Over 90%. We are the trend, though, is we are seeing more and more males come in, which is interesting, and a lot of them are coming from outside dental, and I think that has to do with the elevation in title and position. A lot of them are leaving, making lateral moves into dentistry, which is great to see. Work-life balance, I think, for our members might be a little easier because working in a dental practice, your hours are defined, so you can actually leave and close the door, and not to say you're not thinking about work. For my team and we work virtually. We're all in different parts of the country, so probably like you guys, you're never really off. But I think cutting yourself off sometimes is best for everyone. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and not to cut this off, we're having a great conversation.
You're about to cut this off.
We're going to cut this part off, and we're going to continue the conversation with another episode. So tune in next time for part 2 of our episode of our interview, with Heather Colicchio, founder and president of AADOM. So join us next time. Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.